Hi, I'm Bob Davis, Canon Explorer of Light, and I'm excited to share with you the exciting new flagship full-frame mirrorless camera from Canon, the much anticipated EOS R1. The EOS R1 is hands down been the right fit for me, right? That's what it's all about. There's so many different Canon bodies out there, so many different brands out there and types of cameras available to you that you really can't go wrong. The challenge is getting out, going to your local camera store, putting your hands on them, running a card through it, testing and figuring out which one is best for you. That being said, I've always been a 1 series user, going all the way back to my film days when I was a photojournalist, using the EOS 1 when it came out. And progressively, I've stayed with the 1 series all the way through digital and now up into mirrorless. I've been anticipating the EOS R1 for a long time. I love an all-in-one encompassing body with a built-in battery grip, weather sealing, illuminated buttons, ruggedness, fast autofocus. It's everything that I need in the camera. Now, not to knock the EOS R5 or the R5 Mark II or any of the other cameras in the mirrorless lineup. You have to decide which one works for you. That being said, let's clear the decks and dig into the specs of the Canon EOS R1. So let's give a quick review of the EOS R1 topics that I'm going to go through. It's a flagship camera for sure. We had the EOS R3. That was a great camera. That to me could have been a flagship camera. Don't know why it wasn't considered one, but it really is. It really was. It's rugged. It was there. That was my go-to camera with the R5 and the R3. Again, I love the feel, the ergonomics, the multi-touch button. All these things work for me. Other people like the smaller form factor of just an R5 body or an R6 without a battery grip. My hands are bigger, so they'll encompass and go underneath the camera. So therefore, the 1 series always work for me. We've got autofocus, electronic shutter. We'll talk about rolling shutter, low light performance, pre-capture, 24 megapixel file. Is that big enough for you? Real life settings and experiences, and the perks that I have of being a Canon Explorer of Light is I get to take these things out just before they hit the market, test them and offer my feedback. And then we're going to talk about the overall performance of this camera and how it's suited for whatever you may need it to do. Let's look at some of the specs. So the full frame 24 megapixel stacked and backside illuminated CMOS sensor, I feel really hits above its own weight, so to speak. We routinely print for clients 24 by 36 inch prints at all ISOs that we need. And I'm going to take you down to the print lab and I'm going to show you some examples of prints at crazy high ISOs, then high ISOs with off-camera flash, and then also natural light. In the lighting lab, this is where we do all of our testing and playing and printing. We do a lot of in-house printing for clients, and routinely we print up to 24 by 36 inch on our Canon Pro 2000 printer. So the R1, right, it's been spectacular. So I've got 2 wedding photographs and 3 wildlife photographs that we talked about before. So let's take a gander at these prints and check out the print quality. We went large, right? Go big or go home. And there we go. Let's take the first one here. We could pixel peep, right? All day long. You know, maybe it's not fair that I'm using off-camera flash to help with lighting, but the quality of this print is just spectacular, and that's the way we would shoot it for real. And here we go. This is the KISS, and we talked about the settings on those, and we could go in closer for a peep. And this is the one where the coyote was 51,200, right? Printed beautifully. Look at the quality on that, 51,200. We're coming in really close, 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 close. Now, yes, this is a finished file. I did run it through Topaz Photo AI, and I did make one with the Adobe noise reduction, but I haven't played around with the in-camera upscaling or noise reduction for the R1 or R5 Mark II. That'll be the next test. So I just wanted to get these out quick, right? So that's total available light, 51,200. Let's jump over to the other Coyote. This one is, again, I'll have to pull up the metadata on it, but it's not fair. We have much better light, and this is the R5 Mark II, and it was a high ISO, I think somewhere around 8,000, but not 51,000, and we had sunlight. It was at daybreak coming in, and it was a nice day, 24 by 36. But my point being is these cameras at high ISO is just unbelievable, right? Just crazy cool. So let's come back over here. I'll put the camera back on the tripod, and then we can get some perspective on the prints. Whenever I'm printing, I like to have on some fine art gloves. This is Canon Pro Luster paper, and these are 24 by 36 inch prints. I plan on gifting these as an artist signature print to the bride and groom. This was 2500 ISO. I mean, come on! 24 megapixels, no breakdown in quality at all. Like I said, I've been using the R3 for a few years. That's been our primary camera. I'm using the R5 occasionally for editorial shoots, or the R5 as the remote camera. I'm just not finding that I need to pixel peep or need that large of a file. Here is full RAW. 24 megapixels, 24 by 36 inch. I believe this was 2500 ISO. Yes, we do have a blend of off-camera flash, because this was just as they were about to recess down the aisle, so I was able to use flash then for the kiss. But the point being is the quality is phenomenal. And this is the proof. The proof is in the pudding when you print, right? Because everything looks great on a backlit monitor, but that quality is just outstanding. Let me grab the wildlife photos. Now, we use different types of paper. We use Hahnemuhle paper. We use Canon Pro Premium Matte an awful lot. Here is 51,000 ISO. No rezzing up, just noise reduction. That was it. And some brightness and color correcting and contrast, right? Boom! 24 by 36, crazy, flat, terrible, I'm not kidding, terrible, terrible, terrible light. The original R5 would have struggled because there isn't as much illuminance or contrast as it appears here in this print. But again, if you expose properly, right, you're going to do well. This was handheld. You know, I'll have to share the metadata here. I did in the previous area when we were in Lightroom, but these are the actual prints. Crazy cool. Locked onto those eyes instantly. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So I've been photographing. We've nicknamed her Sheba since August, right? Know her patterns and her routines, and it's, like I said, to the point now that she recognizes our car and she doesn't flinch. She just kind of will come up, you know, within reason, 20, 30, 40 feet away. Here's one of my favorites of Sheba. This is back in end of August, early September. She was playing a little hide and seek by the trees with me, but I just love that shy look in the light. So much better quality of light than the other one, and I still think this was 8,000 ISO with the R5 Mark II. This also is a finished file, and this also is run through Topaz. So for noise reduction, incredible, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Lovely print. And these are all on the Canon Pro Luster 24 by 36. Again, this is much darker scene than it appears to be. This is 20 minutes, 15 minutes after sundown on a flat, cold, rainy day. And we used the triangle of light outside, 3 EL1 speed lights, 6400 ISO. Crazy cool, right? Looks like daylight. But my point is the quality, no noise, outstanding, all at 24 megapixels. So for me, I'm not getting caught up on is that image sensor enough or not. I like it. I don't have to worry about storage. I shoot fast. I shoot a lot in low light where autofocus can struggle. And I shoot a lot at high ISO for wildlife and in terrible lighting conditions. I photograph a lot in inclement weather where it's rain, it's cold, it's freezing, all those sets of things. And I'm just a 1 series guy. So take that information. I hope it's of value to you. I hope you can use it. And if you like what we've been sharing here, please give a thumbs up, subscribe, and share it with those that you know. So to recap, it has been the R1, R5 Mark II, R5, talking about readout speeds and through all the specs of Canon's new flagship camera, the EOS R1. For me, it's a 2 thumbs up. This sensor, I believe, is one of Canon's best. It has the lowest noise out of any image sensor or camera that I have used at native or high ISOs without any auxiliary lighting. It's clean, it's wonderful, it's amazing. It is fast, crazy readout speeds, which are essential if you are shooting anything that is moving, like sports, fast-moving objects, birds in flight. Because what rolling shutter is, let me quickly explain, is you have an image sensor and it scans. I believe it's from top left to lower right, much like a TV set. So the difference of what a rolling shutter means is as it's scanning, if a fast-moving object moves through the frame, we'll start getting that oval shape in that object because it's scanning, and that object moves through the image sensor as that scan completes. The readout speed is so fast, it's faster than a mechanical shutter on the R1 that I have not noticed any rolling shutter at all. Now with photography, there's trade-offs for everything. Now again, a global shutter, what that means is we don't have that scan feature, but it is the shutter opening up, the image sensor is completely charged and discharged, so you don't have any scan effect, and thereby you no longer have a flash sync speed. With today's current technology, there are some trade-offs. There are trade-offs with fast readout speed, and there are trade-offs with larger megapixel files, right? So while the R5 Mark II has a faster readout speed than the R5, in those higher ISOs, you may tend to notice, I'm talking crazy high ISOs, above 3200, you may notice more noise than with the original R5. That's because of the readout speed. There's always trade-offs with technology. Now, global shutter, while yes, it will open and close rapidly and it eliminates the need for a sync speed, there are some issues with signal-to-noise ratio, especially in the darks and especially at high ISOs, I would say above, in my opinion, above 3200. You really start to notice the difference. So those are all the trade-offs. You have to decide what is right for you. Again, the 24 megapixel file is a sweet spot for me. I don't have to worry about as much storage. The stacked backside illuminated CMOS sensor, as I said before, really is high quality and hits above its weight class. And you'll see that in the prints. And you'll see that even when I share some images in pixel peeping. We have a smarter, more sticky, the best all-around autofocus system I have used. Now again, I'm talking because I'm a Canon Explorer of Light, and I'm talking from my experience with Canon. And I'm also talking about some of our second and third shooters on events with us do use other cameras, and I do see a fall off in their focus being softer in low light, flat, illuminated situations. Remember, while autofocus is amazing, and we have all this technology for face, head, eye, subject detection, it still requires brightness and contrast. Another innovation of the EOS R1 is it's the first mirrorless camera to have cross-type focus sensor focusing points across the image sensor. So what that means is you're going to be able to acquire focus on things that are extremely horizontal or extremely vertical. Where, for instance, in the past, if I had a small bird on a horizontal branch that I'm trying to photograph, sometimes the R3 and the R5 could have a challenge, especially if we didn't have good contrasty light, acquiring focus. But if we tilted that camera a little bit askew, you'd notice, boom, it would acquire that focus. because we're putting it perpendicular to the horizontal, and it gives those focus points something to grab on. While you can embrace today's technology with face, head, eye, subject detection, remember it still needs a certain amount of light and contrast to perform. With that being said, the R1 has outperformed the R5 Mark II and the R3 in the situations that I've put it to the test in. That being low flat light in wildlife and crazy low flat light of fast moving people on the dance floor at a wedding. Bigger built-in battery grip than an R5 Mark II, where you could put the battery grip in and you need 2 batteries. But I like the all-weather sealing, one big battery in there. And it still is the same battery that we've been using since the EOS 1DX series camera. So the LPE19 battery. So that works great. Let's talk about first impressions. In my preview video where I took you guys on an adventure with me for a wedding, and I'll put that in the link here as well, it just fits. The ergonomics, the button layout, where everything is, fits to my hand and agrees with me. The R5 Mark II is an improvement over the R5, but it's still a little bit smaller, and even with the battery grip, I'm not a real fan of the joystick and how it moves around. My thumb just falls right on that multifunction, multi-touch button, which I think is fantastic. Some people don't like it. Some people like the joystick. Again, take these cameras out, run them through their paces, give a test, and see what you like and what works for you. The electronic viewfinder I found to be almost optical in nature. It's the best by far that I've used. It's got 9.4 million dots. The EVF is sharper and brighter and blackout free than the EOS R3, which had at that time the best electronic viewfinder that I had used. The LCD, the rear LCD screen on the R3 still has a little bit more resolution than the R1. I'm guessing Canon may have made that decision for battery life, who knows. But we go from a 4.15 million dot LCD on the R3 to a 2.1 million dot LCD on the R1. So visually it feels very on par and alignment with the R5 Mark II and the R5. Another thing with having the buttons built into the battery grip, we have full function vertical built in. We have, again, a second multifunction. You also do have the joystick if you like working the joystick. That's there for you as well. What else? Oh, the buttons are all backside illuminated. So if you're photographing in a dark situation, whatever the case may be, you tap the shutter button or you tap the light bulb button, and those rear button function buttons light up. So if you don't have that muscle memory yet as to where things are laid out, it's very useful. Focus, man, this thing is incredibly fast to acquire the subject, stay on the subject, remain sticky even with obstacles in front of it, and then reacquire should you lose focus. It's been the fastest, most accurate that I have used to date. To show the stickiness of the autofocus with the R1, this is even, boy, enough of an improvement over the R5 Mark II, and I believe it's because of the crosshair type and the image processors that are in there that it will remain sticky. Now, they have simplified the autofocus cases. You have just 2 now, and it's much more simple, and I've just stayed in the native case. I didn't go to anything customizable. But notice how it acquired this seagull, and the seagull is going to fly through the frame, through some leaves of a tree, and this is still in focus. Let that acquire. There you go. These are right out of camera files, no processing. I should say a little processing, but no noise reduction. Still in focus, right through the entire sequence. It held focus. I jumped on this bird just as it was coming. This was the first frame, and it remained sticky all the way through the scene. Incredible. So for me alone, that's worth the upgrade from the R3 to the R1. Everything about it is just set for performance and speed and fast moving objects. So you might say, hey, I don't need that. I'm photographing weddings or I'm photographing portraits. Well, if you've used one and then you go back to the other, you'll notice the difference at how fast and how sticky it acquires. So you could react to things that may be happening quickly through the viewfinder, and you know it's going to be dead on accurate with the focus. Let's talk about frame rate. So the frame rates are 12 frames per second in mechanical. I do appreciate that Canon left the mechanical shutter while we're moving forward with the R1. Some third-party strobes and flashes do not like electronic shutter yet, so we still have that ability to go back to mechanical shutter. And while I'm talking about flash, mechanical shutter syncs at 1/200th of a second. Electronic shutter syncs at 1/320th of a second. I have used the EOS R1 with third-party flashes. In electronic shutter, it works. I've also used the Canon EL1 speed lights with the R1 in not only electronic first curtain sync, but full electronic shutter. It worked perfectly. Now, I was getting some intermittent misfires when I was using a third-party flash in full electronic shutter, but not at all when I was using electronic first curtain sync. Readout speeds. All right, the R3, R5 Mark II, and R1 have faster electronic readout speeds than the R5. So again, that means less rolling shutter. So if you're photographing sports, fast-moving objects, birds, auto racing, anything like that, you're going to get less distortion in that image. So just to give you a rundown, the R5 has a 15.5 millisecond readout speed. Remember, that's the scan at which it reads out. The R5 Mark II, they've cut it almost in half. It's a 6.2 millisecond readout speed from top to bottom. The R3 is a 5.5 millisecond readout speed, and the R1 has a readout speed of 2.7 milliseconds. So I haven't gone out and photographed, well, I did photograph golf. Yeah, and I didn't see any warping or bending in the club or the ball. I photographed birds in flight, no rolling shutter, no distortion at all. So that's a great improvement. So just for example, mechanical shutter readout speed is 3 milliseconds. So the R1 comes in just below that. Of course, any camera with a global shutter is going to have a 0 millisecond readout speed. Remember, because it's instantaneously charging the image sensor and discharging it, much like the leaf shutter in an old Hasselblad. That's why we don't need a sync speed, right? Very cool. Good stuff, good stuff. And again, just to reiterate, flash can be used in full electronic shutter with Canon native speed lights in ETTL with all of the functions, meaning first curtain sync, high speed sync, second curtain sync. I did have very good success with using third-party flashes in electronic first curtain sync speed, which gave us a sync speed of 1/320th of a second. So a little bit faster than the 1/200th of a second native mechanical shutter flash sync speed. So let's talk about eye control. So eye control, I remember when it was around in the EOS Elans, the EOS 3, those cameras, and it worked decently. I wear glasses so that I could read the fine print. They're progressive. The R3, I did use eye control without glasses, right? So I used it often. The most of the time when I would use eye control would be during speeches, press conferences, people at a podium, things like that. Otherwise, I found the eye control wasn't as fast as reacting and acquiring focus as the actual focusing points, wherever you may put them in the field of view. Now, the R1 is a little bit different. I'm still calibrating it, getting it fully calibrated. The more often you calibrate it in the many different lighting situations and lenses that you're in, the more accurate it becomes. But so far, I found the R1 and the R5 Mark II to be a drastic improvement over the R3, and the R1 was working, again, I have to get mine, was working with these progressive glasses. So that's a big deal. That works a lot. By default, in the R1 and the R5 Mark II, full electronic shutter does have a sound associated with it, unlike the EOS R, the EOS R5, where you would get a frame around your viewfinder that would blink at you. And sometimes you could be shooting and not realizing you're taking, 20, 30 frames per second and eating up a lot of memory space. So I do like that there is a sound. The sound is programmable. There's different sounds to choose from. You could turn that on or off as well. And your electronic shutter frame rate is also programmable. So in full electronic shutter, the R1 is 40 frames per second. Then it goes down to, I think, 20 frames per second. Then it goes down to 10 or 15 frames per second. Then it goes down to single frame. So you can program those as to what you want. If you don't need 40 frames per second in H+, you can now program that to whatever speed you would like for the frames per second. All right, pre-capture. Pre-capture is a new feature for the R5 Mark II and the EOS R1. The pre-capture, what it does is as you depress the shutter halfway down, it's recording. It's sending images to the buffer at 20 frames per second at a half a second interval. So every half second, it's dumping and refreshing. When you depress that shutter all the way down and start to actually take the photographs, it goes back in time 20 frames. So this is great for timing in sports and wildlife, and it's been phenomenal in my experience on both the R5 Mark II and the EOS R1. The R1 has a larger buffer. I have not run into any issues with the buffer, and I think that's due to the actual buffer in the camera is larger, and we have dual CF Express card slots. So they're both at the same, writing at the same speed, versus the R5 Mark II, we have a CF Express and an SD card, and if you're shooting RAW to both cards simultaneously, you can buff out. Your buffer is only as fast as the slowest card in your camera. So that's a huge improvement. 24 megapixels, is it enough? Well, you have to decide. If you're a person who's doing a lot of low light or higher ISO photography, then yes, you want to use a lower megapixel file camera. Because again, readout speed and size of the megapixels is going to affect noise ratio, noise to signal ratio. 24 megapixels is kind of that sweet spot. And I've been shooting this thing at like 51,000 ISO, crazy. And I made some 24 by 36 inch prints at that high ISO, and we'll compare it to a lower, tad bit lower ISO R5 Mark II, but the R5 Mark II, that was also in better light. I was out photographing coyotes. One was in really terrible rainy overcast light, and the other one was right at daybreak when the sun was peeking through. So that's kind of not really an apples to apples comparison, but they're both at high ISOs. As I said, we routinely print large, and the R3 did amazingly well. I did a few large prints from this wedding that we used the R1 on, and again, you can't tell the difference, at least I can't, from pixel peeping in the print and proper viewing distance between the R5 Mark II, and the R1. The R1 is holding its own. You also have the capability to capture still photographs while shooting video. So while video is rolling, you can press the shutter down and you're going to capture 17 megabyte JPEG files while you're still recording video without interrupting the video, right? So it's basically just taking a frame grab of the video. Video is kind of outside my wheelhouse, so there's other people out there that you can gravitate to check out their knowledge about the video specs. But from what I could tell and see with the R1, it's going to hold its own. It's a beast of a camera. I do know immediately in video that the autofocus is improved greatly between the R3 and the R1. So again, if you like this information, like everything that we're doing here, please like it, subscribe, and remember to share it.